Hey everybody, it's Tom and Imre. We are in Austria here still. Sorry, we're not live because of the way that, long story, doesn't matter, technical issues, okay? Sound, really. So we're recording this video earlier so that we can post it online. Last week I asked Imre to give his testimony about how he met Jesus. And you can look at that on Facebook. It's probably on YouTube. And like I said, the sound is horrific. It's really bad. And it's not great in here either, but we've kind of gone everywhere to look for a good place to record. And this is what we settled on. And the phone itself does a better job of isolating the sound. When you get Facebook involved, it just decides to fix everything by making it worse. Anyway, today I asked Imre to share about some of the things that he's learned over the years, especially because he got involved in...
How do you know me?
Why don't I tell you how I know Imre? How do we know each other, Imre? We met in, what, 2000?
Yep.
May of 2000. After he got saved, he told you about how God spoke to him on the bench. And then what happened?
Well, I was a criminal and I needed a place to just get out of that criminal crowd and my own family. And just about 2-3 weeks later, Tom offered me to move in with him for free because I stopped doing all the crime, so I had no money. I was broken.
Well, you walked into our church, right? I mean, God told you where to go to church, didn't he?
Oh yeah, right after the bench experience, I asked God where to go to because everyone claims to be the right church, and without them you have no salvation. And right next day I bumped into this guy. He was really annoying and jumpy, and singing on a guitar and have a harmonica, doing worship on the streets and passing out flyers about church. And I just put it in my back pocket, and I found it a month later, and then that's how I found the church.
Was that Gabor singing?
Yeah.
That's great. Gabor was our worship leader for a little while. Yeah, and it's funny because I was planning to move into an apartment with this other guy, a different Hungarian guy, and it fell through with him, and so I just had an empty space, and somehow I knew that Imre needed a place to go, and I don't remember who told me that or anything else. I just thought he had trouble at home or something, and he needed someplace else to be. Yeah. So I told him, hey man, I heard that you need a place to stay, and I have a place to stay, and it's all paid for whether you live in it or not. So if you need some place to go, you might as well come and hang out with me. And so now Imre is about my oldest friend in the world.
One of them.
Yeah.
Because what's his name is the first one?
Jeff Roberts. Yeah,
Jeff.
I've known Jeff a little bit longer than I've known Imre, but yeah.
And RP.
Yeah, I've known RP better, longer than you, but I wouldn't say that he's a better friend than you. Sorry, RP. Anyway, a little while ago, Imre got involved in helping refugees and things like that from the war in Ukraine. And I wanted him to talk to you about that. I'm sure that I'm about to hear a whole lot of stories that I've never heard before. And I know that you guys would be interested in hearing about the ways that God is working in that horrible situation. So he's got stories to tell, and it's a testimony of what God's doing. So
yeah, well, just I think 1 or 2 weeks before the war broke out in Ukraine, I prayed that God would give me an opportunity to serve, because I had free time, a month, 2 months free time, and I didn't want to stay here in Austria and do nothing.
Wait a minute. What do we do here? What's going on here in Austria? What are you doing here? How did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, they needed a chef, and then I. It's a long story.
Yeah, okay. Imre is the chef here at this conference center, and that's why actually my family and I are here, because my daughter specifically wanted to come and volunteer at this place, and I knew that she couldn't travel by herself and get here, and so I took Levi with us, and we're here, and I knew Imre was here working as the chef, so we've been volunteering.
And I wish Carolyn could have come, and
Yeah.
all the kids.
All the kids.
Yeah.
It would have been nice. Anyway, sorry to interrupt the narrative there, but he was here. He had some downtime.
Yeah, and so one day before the war actually broke up, I saw a video on Facebook, one of my old pastor saying that he's gonna drive to Budapest and trying to get involved with the ministry who's helping refugees coming out of the war areas. So next day I jumped in my car and I said, okay, God, I think this is my opportunity. So I had no idea where I'm driving to, or I had no idea what am I gonna do. I just had that joy. That's all I had. I'm gonna go help these people. And the reason I had that joy is because I did help out with the Syrian war too. And me and my fellow servants, we were working almost 24 hours for months helping those refugees. But that was the happiest time of my life, basically. I just love doing that and helping people, broken people and all that, and elderly people, of course, too. I love helping them. Anyhow, so I jumped in my car and I started driving towards Budapest, because Budapest is between Ukraine and Austria.
Don't whack the table too much. You're going to knock the phone over.
Oh, yeah. And just right before I arrived to Budapest, this pastor just called me. Hey, where are you? What are you doing these days? And I said, I'm just about driving into Budapest, and I was wondering if you would need some help. Oh yeah, oh that's great, that's awesome. Hey, don't come to Budapest, go to Ukrainian border. So I drove down to the Ukrainian border, and I had to pick up my first group of people who came out of the war areas from Kiev and from Mariupol and all those areas. So I had to drive them back to safety. So that day I drove about 20 hours.
So wait, just because I have a question about that. They were bringing the refugees to the border, but they couldn't come across the border themselves?
Men could not cross the border, but what they did is pastors were driving kids and women down to the border, and then we had to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
They give us names of the pastors, and then they would pass the kids or the women, and then we took them to whatever accommodation. And that was interesting too, how God worked this whole thing out, because we didn't have a hotel, we didn't have a hostel, we didn't even have money to rent anything for these people. We had to rely on private people's offers, but it worked out perfectly. People, I was on my way to Budapest and I had no idea where am I going to drop these people off. And then the messages are started coming in. This is the address, this is the address. You take 2 people here, 3 people here.
Wow.
You know, yeah, it's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. And so next day, I had to go to a refugee camp to pick up people. And I did it twice in a row. And then the police is looking for me. They were looking for me, and they looked for me all over the country. That I was wanted for human trafficking. Because all they saw is the bald gypsy with a foreign license plate, Austrian license plate, picking up refugees, mainly women and kids, because that's what they had. Like, because the man couldn't pass the border, taking them, and they've never seen them after.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. So
there was concern.
Yeah.
And it was valid.
Yeah. So they caught me, and then they got all my information. So I clarified myself, basically. So I was able to continue what I was doing, but I had to clarify myself, and it's just a huge process. We were all laughing about it, but yeah, I think it's. I understand, because many people, what they do is they're actually waiting at the border, and they're criminals, and they take these young girls and even old women, and they sell them. You know, it's a big deal. And so I understand. I understood what it, and I wasn't mad or anything. It's just.
It's good that they were vigilant about that. Yeah.
After that, I had to deliver a lot of money through the borders because the bank system collapsed and all that. And so I had a bunch of money, and mainly the military needed protections like bulletproof vest and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I delivered some of that too. So I needed to drive that, but then I had to drive through a lot of checkpoints, so I needed a translator, and I got a young girl as a translator, which made it so much, pretty girl, so which made it so much easier to go through these checkpoints, because they didn't care about me. They cared about the young, pretty girl, and they were all, like, the soldiers were flirting with her, and then just, go. It's funny, so they didn't even check my pockets, and because that amount of money was not legal to carry.
So where did the money come from?
The money was given by private people, individuals, supporting, and churches, American churches that I never heard of before, who wanted to help out the army with, and not just the army, but private people too, with food and medications. And,
so it was humanitarian relief?
Yes. Yeah.
So you were bringing it into Ukraine and passing it off to the people who needed it.
Yeah. So on that day when I was carrying a huge amount of money, a stranger calls me. Oh, Imre, I heard that you are driving to Ukraine and that you deliver things. I'm a pastor in America, and one of my guys was stopped, and he's trying to take a lot of medications over to Ukraine, to Kiev and all that, and we need to get these things through the border. And I said, well, if they denied him and he gets in my car, then I'm gonna be taken apart by the,
big trouble.
Yeah, but finally I said, okay, let's try it. So he puts everything in my car, and my car is loaded, and he sits in the back that he's covered with boxes and everything. So we approached to the border where he was denied before, and actually that time Americans were not allowed in Ukraine. And it's funny because they just looked at me and they said, go. They didn't even see the guy, the American guy in the back. Right? So we passed through both borders and checkpoints without even looking at us. So we got to the place where he was able to pass to the medication to the soldiers and all that.
Was this Jake? Was it Jake who called you?
I don't know what was the name of the pastor.
Oh, okay.
It was a young guy who actually he said that the story was that he had a daughter, 4 years old daughter, and something, or maybe 6 years. I'm sorry, I don't remember the story. But what happened was the daughter heard about the war in Ukraine, and she woke up and ran to the father and said, "Hey, you need to go help these people." And then he went to the church and says, "I need to go help these people." And they collected all this money, and he bought all these medications and all that. And I thought it was a sweet story.
Yeah.
You know, like a 4 or 6 year old girl, like, you know.
As the messenger of God to go.
Yeah, hey, it was an amazing story.
Yeah.
So, but one of my favorite story is that many churches got together and they put a lot of money together. So they purchased this huge buses with like 50 seats or something, 6 of them. And the idea is that they were driving around these areas and then they mainly orphans and kids, which they did. It was amazing. So they just got them on the buses and they were driving out these people to safety because, which is good because next day the Russian army was just like they said, "Oh yeah, you can go," but then they start shooting civilians. Like it was horrible. But what happened is that they made a mistake. They paid the drivers. None of the Ukrainian drivers were able to actually fulfill this driving need because they couldn't pass the border. So, or the what's it called? Checkpoints. So they needed to employ foreigners, and they did that from some other country, I don't remember, but they paid them in advance. So out of 6 people, 3 of them takes off with the money and said, "Well, we're not gonna drive, but goodbye."
Yeah, thanks for the cash.
It's so funny. So 3 of these young American guys, they never drove a bus before, but then the other ones are teaching them, and they had to learn in a matter of a couple hours how to drive these huge buses, which they did, and they drove around Kiev and up north to Moripur. So they collected a huge amount of women and kids, and they drove them to the borders and to safety. But then they got in trouble, the American kids, for not having a bus license. And then they had to get out of the country, like, immediately.
Wait, so they're driving orphan kids out of Ukraine, and the Ukrainian police are like, "Hey, you can't be doing this because you don't have the proper license."
Yeah. And mainly, not the police. They got in trouble by the army because, you know, the checkpoint. At the checkpoint.
Okay.
So one of them checked them, and, you know. Anyways, I wouldn't have said anything, but you're right. They're like, "Come on, we're doing a favor to you."
Yeah.
But anyways, they get in trouble, and I got a call. "Hey man, please go see my kids."
Wait, do you have a bus driver's license?
No, I just have to go and get the Americans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and drive them to Budapest to safety, and that was interesting. So I found them, and then they got in my car, and then we drove to Budapest, and it was funny. And then it was super funny. And then they paid me. I don't know. They paid me a good money, but I didn't do it for money. I didn't even know that. But they were so happy, especially as parents. I think, "Oh, we want to just take it."
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool story. Yeah.
Ingrid told me earlier today that during this, how long you were driving in and out of Ukraine for about a month, right?
2 months.
2 months. During this time, he pretty much totaled his car. It was not drivable after this, right?
Yeah, I drove. Let's convert that to miles. I drove 20,000 kilometers, which would be 17,000 miles, right?
I don't know.
Something
That's
like that.
beyond my pay grade.
Because it's 1.7 the conversion. Anyways, it's about 15,000 miles in 2 months. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the Ukrainian roads were so bad, and up north, some of the main roads were destroyed purposely, so that if the army breaks in, the Russian army breaks in, that they would slow them down.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like hard to drive on those roads, which means that normally like 10 miles would take me 20 minutes, but in this case it took me 2 hours, 3 hours.
because you're driving around all of the holes in the ground.
Yeah.
Just trashing your car.
Yeah.
And so, in addition to totaling his car, he also completely emptied his bank account.
But I got money. Somebody sent me money.
Yeah, somebody sent him money to replace his car after he was back.
Yeah, I have no idea who did.
Yeah.
But I actually got a better one.
God took care of you.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is like what did you learn from God during that time? What were the things that he was showing you?
A lot of things. One of the things I learned was just driving through all these towns and seeing all the fear in people's eyes and talking to believers and how sad they were and angry and just kind of like, I would say, like, not losing faith. How would you say that? Like, maybe just being upset with God. You know, questioning, and even Christians, that's the question of you know, like, if God is loving, why would He allow all this suffering in our lives? Why would He allow our kids and children to be killed and all that? Which is, I think, it's a valid question.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is that God has nothing to do with this. You know, the reason I'm telling you this story because I myself asked that question. I wanted to clean that up in my head too. But the answer from God is I have given the rules to humanity to love each other. And that's how simple it is. If everyone would obey that, you know, it's not even a suggestion, it's a law to love one another, you know. And if everyone would obey that, this would not happen. And you know, people say, well, if God created everything, He created evil. No. The evil is just the absence of love in people's hearts. We create evil. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Like what God says, you will become gods. I think He meant that like in a negative sense. You will start creating evil yourself. It's like, and it makes sense, you know. It's seeing all that suffering, and I did share this with a couple of people. I had to be careful because, you know, sometimes I came across like super wise and maybe like heartless, not caring about their pain, and so I had to slow down and stop basically with this kind of, you know,
with the people that were fighting for their lives and everything.
So, the other thing I learned was, which is my favorite, is 1 Corinthians 13. You know, I've been reading that 5 years now, but this happened 2 years ago, so I've been reading that for 3 years at that time, and every day, every morning, that was the first thing, because I couldn't memorize it. I was supposed to memorize it.
Somebody challenged you to memorize it.
And I couldn't, so I kept reading it. And
fair enough.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of that chapter, and it's just amazing. But at the end it says that only love remains. And God told me, see, Imre, it's not true that when you die, you're not taking anything with you. It's not true. You take love with you. Every single loving kindness you have done in my name to others will be with you when you come to heaven. And I will reward you for that. And that encouraged me so much to keep doing what I was doing. Now, I know that not everyone has that opportunity to go and drive around in these areas, but I'm not only talking about that. It's just every small kindness, every what you do unto the Lord, when we go to heaven, we will carry that.
It reminds me of,
with us.
I don't have a Bible here with me. How did we do this without a Bible in the room? Well, the Bibles are under the phone so that we could have...
Well, you have my phone.
I was just thinking about Matthew chapter 25. Jesus is talking about the separating the goats from the sheep. at the Great Throne Judgment. I think that's what it's called.
Mm.
And he says to the people
Left.
who are entering heaven, you know, like when you did all of these things, when you visited
Oh, they're right.
the
yeah.
sick and the imprisoned and the people who were in need, and when you took care of them, when you clothed them, when you fed them, it was as if you did it to me. And he says, you know, now
Yeah, so the
enter
whole,
into your rest.
I 100% agree. And he told me that, and I realized, you know, the whole idea of playing church is not the emphasis. The scriptures are important, teaching that. I'm not saying that, but what's even more important is when we get together to show love and care for one another, because that's all will remain. You know, like all the smart teachings or wisdom. He says it's all gonna vanish.
And I was thinking about how, you know, you could be there driving because you were close by and you had a vehicle and God put things together for you to, you know, take care of things. But it's neat to have heard about people that, like this little 4-year-old girl who obviously she can't go to Ukraine, but she can motivate her dad to go and help. And all of these people from churches from around the world are sending, you know, relief and support so that they can bring in medical care or bulletproof vests or whatever it is that they were bringing over. You know, that's a neat, to me, body of Christ kind of thing.
And
like,
I don't want to sound like you meet all nationalities, but out of 10 volunteers, at least 7 were Americans. It's just like, yeah, people can say whatever they want about Americans, but they have a giving heart.
Were these primarily Christians, you think?
Oh, yeah, many of them, yeah. Yeah, well, the driver kids, they were not.
Just guys that wanted to
Yeah,
help.
just guys who wanted to help. But mainly, yeah, mainly people, you know, were Christians.
So we're wrapping up now, I think. But you're not doing that anymore. You're not driving in and out of Ukraine. You're not bringing relief over there any longer.
Well, I am, but my motivation has changed because I ended up dating this girl who translated for me. But I do drive still to Ukraine, but not only to help out. Sometimes I do get little tasks to deliver Bibles or this and that, or aggregators. That's how you call them? Those power makers.
Oh, like a power converter?
Yeah, no, like the...
Oh, a generator.
Generator,
Okay.
yeah, so we call them aggregators. Anyways, so yeah, sometimes I get tasks like that, but I mainly go visit my girlfriend's mom, and I'm familiar with the news. So my idea is actually to move there, pick a city, and then start helping, because now the country is in trouble with orphanages. They don't have space for orphanages, and they don't have money for actually keeping them, and many kids are just on the street without parents, whose parents had died off or you know, were killed. So maybe I could do something with that, and I'm praying for that.
Is there anything else that's currently going on with Ukraine or with refugees that you know of where people could help? Like Oya's ministry in Budapest?
Oh yeah. So some of the pastors came over to different countries. They are in Romania, Hungary, and Poland, because a big chunk of the refugees went to Poland because Polish is similar to Ukrainian, so they understand the language.
Okay.
So there are ministries who help these people to be plugged in with the society. They help them with food. They help them with everything they need. But mainly, their task is to find churches who would actually accommodate them, help them spiritually in every kind of way. So that, you know, but also there are communities where we didn't find churches who would actually volunteer, or
Yeah.
so we have to go and teach them, and whatever
Yeah.
help they need.
So you're getting involved in sort of helping the people who have been displaced by the war and they're trying to start a life in a different country.
Well, yes. The biggest problem is that they're not doing well spiritually, emotionally, spiritually.
Right. Yeah.
They have lost husbands, home, everything. They can barely make it out with their kids.
Yeah.
In our ministry, there's a woman whose husband was a soldier, and it took her a long time, 2 years now, that her husband died in the war, and she's still struggling, but she finds joy in helping others. So when she shares with those people, it sounds more valuable than if I would share.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
All right. Well, I will gather information on that. So if there's people out there who want to get involved in that, you can talk to me when I get back. And that'll be next week, by the way. Next Wednesday, I won't be doing a live stream or a video because I will be traveling home. So I will see you on the Sunday after that. I don't know what the date is of that. Not this coming Sunday, the Sunday after that I'll be at church, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys there. And I'll have other stories to tell you, I'm sure. There's a lot of stuff that I was thinking about, talking about. I met a Ukrainian refugee and was talking to her about her life and husband and stuff like that. So
Or that he brought a dead skeleton back into kitchen.
Actually, now that you mention it, we have to serve dinner in 15 minutes, brother.
Oh yeah.
We got to go cook dinner.
Right.
God bless you guys.
Yeah, God bless you, and thank you for listening.
We'll see you soon.